Rebecca said, it's a pleasure for me to be here this morning in my capacity as county clerk and the chief election official of Union County. I'm very concerned that everyone takes the time to vote. It's such a privilege. So I wanted to say a few words about what my office does and then talk about this election. And as Rebecca mentioned, there is lots of literature on the front that the league provided, but I also provided. And by the way, the calendar that Rebecca showed, the cover shot is a woman from Plainfield, a League of Women Voter member who ran for the U.S. Senate in the 20s. So take a look at that. So my office is what they call a constitutional office. County clerk is actually mentioned in the New Jersey Constitution. Every county must have one. And we are elected. And it's a funny thing that we're elected because our office is really an administrative office, not a policy-making office. But we are elected for a 5-year term. And I was first elected in 1995 to the county clerk position. So I've run twice. No, more than twice, 3 times. 4 times? I don't know. Anyway, a lot. So what do I do? Well, in New Jersey, elections is bifurcated. It's divided between my office and the Board of Elections. And there's a machine here today, which is great because we can demonstrate for those people that never voted before just how to use it. But the Board of Elections provides the machines on election day. They also provide the poll workers and the books, the poll books. And I don't know if everyone's familiar with what a poll book is, but every registered voter for that voter district is in that poll book. And before you're allowed to vote or permitted to vote, you have to sign your name in the poll book. And that signature is compared, or your original signature is in the book, so somebody can just visually compare it, that you are the person you say you are. And then you're given a slip, a voter authorization slip. You give it to the poll worker, and you're permitted to vote. And of course, in a primary, you either have to be a registered Republican, a registered Democrat, or you could be unaffiliated voter, but once you declare how you want to vote, that's how you have to vote. So the poll worker in a primary actually locks the machine. So if you say, I'm a Democratic voter, when you go in, you're going to see both ballots, but you're only permitted to vote the Democratic ballot. You're locked out of the other side, and vice versa. So what do I do in my office if the Board of Elections does that? Well, we take all petitions for county offices. Anyone's running for freeholder, county sheriff, county surrogate, my position, we are the people that take those petitions in and put those people on the ballot. We have drawings in terms of how people are going to appear on the ballot. By party, we have drawings, and and sometimes by actual candidates we do drawings. That's less frequent. And then I prepare the ballot, and it's not one ballot. And this is a difficult concept for people to understand, but in this primary, I have over 90 different ballots for Union County. And the reason for that is because there's different towns, there's mayoral candidates, there's council candidates, and the ballot, and there's districts and wards, and the ballot has to reflect that. And in many towns, I do the ballot bilingually, in English and Spanish, by federal law. I think there's 15 towns now where the ballot appears bilingual. So I set that ballot up for the machine. We call that the official ballot, and they're outside. I brought them with me today, but they look like this. And the Democratic Party is here, and the Republican Party is here, and every ballot by law has to have the instructions on how to vote. So I do that, and then I prepare a vote by mail or absentee ballot. Okay? Then I prepare a provisional ballot and an emergency ballot. And what those ballots are, I'll explain that, but if you ever go to the polls and you say, why aren't I in the book? I know I'm a registered voter, I should be in the book, and you're not, you are allowed to vote provisionally, and that means you're voting on a paper ballot. And you're signing an affidavit that says you swear that you're a registered voter and that you live at this address. That ballot is sealed and put in a box, and at the end of the night, when it goes to the Board of Elections, they have to verify from the outside of the envelope before they open it that that person is indeed a registered voter. Then they will open the ballot and read it, okay? But you have to be registered. Sometimes people move, you know, and they go to their old voting place, and they don't realize that they're not in the poll book for their new voting place. So that happens a lot. An emergency ballot is in the event that the electricity goes out and the machine cannot be plugged in. The electricity doesn't work on the machine, so again, it's paper ballots. And they are sealed and they are put in a box. So it doesn't stop you from voting because there's a blackout or a brownout or whatever. Okay. So I do that. I do all those ballots. I also do overseas ballots. For people living overseas, I do military ballots. And then I issue ballots to people who want to vote absentee. We call it mail-in ballots now, but it's really absentee voting. So you don't need a reason to vote absentee. You don't need any type of excuse. Anybody who wants to can vote before the election. So what you do is you just fill out a form, and this is the form. It's in yellow brochures that I brought. You sign it. You either give it to me today or you can send it in, and then we mail you your ballot. You fill it out, but that ballot has to be back in the mail and received by the Board of Elections by Election Day, or it won't be read. Very important to remember. So I know we have a lot of seniors who may not be able to get out on Election Day or don't want to do that, don't have transportation, whatever. Or people that are ill in hospitals or nursing homes or senior centers, whatever. This is a great way to vote. So those ballots go directly to the Board of Elections. That's part of my job. And then on election night, when the polls are closed, I have sheriff's officers pick up every cartridge from those machines. It's like a VCR cartridge. Remember those cartridges? They're a little bulky. They go to satellite offices around the county. Eventually they come back to my office, but they're read. Some are read in my office, some are read in satellite offices. So Plainfield's ballots actually go to Scotch Plains, to our warehouse, and they're read there. They're electronically transmitted to me, the election results, and then I tabulate them. And then by election night, by say 10 o'clock, I have all the results. They're unofficial results, but I have them, and then I spend the rest of the week reviewing them and making sure they're correct. That following Monday, I have to certify those election results that they're true. Now what happens very often, and I think this is why I'm here today, is people don't realize, even when there isn't competition on the ballot, how important voting is. In the last 10 years, I would say I've done maybe 20 recounts. A recount is when the election is so close, one of the candidates says, I want to recount. I want you to recount all the ballots. Sometimes it's been one vote difference, honestly. I've had 2 elections in Westfield that were 1 vote difference. Talk about the importance of 1 vote. Some have been 4 or 5 votes. I've had 10 vote differences. That's too close. That's too close in an election. You know, it's great to win an election, but you'd like to win it by a larger majority. And where it happens is in usually the absentee ballots. Usually the cartridges, I don't have any problem. There's no discrepancy in reading them. But sometimes in the absentees, someone will come in and challenge that that person no longer lives in that town and they went back to vote, or maybe they passed away before the election and a wife or somebody else voted for them. So I've had challenges like that. The other thing I forgot to mention is when a petition comes in, somebody can challenge it. And I am the chief hearing officer. I have to conduct a hearing and listen to both sides. That happened just a few weeks ago with petitions from Elizabeth for freeholder. Somebody challenged the petitions. They said that fraud was involved, that there were not enough signatures on the petition. I had a 2-day hearing, and for the first time, this has ever happened, I actually threw out 3 of the 4 petitions because I determined that fraud had occurred, that several of the signatures were written by the same person. And the circulator of the petition swore under oath that she saw everyone sign it. So my argument was, well, if you saw them sign it, then did you see one person sign 15 times? So they didn't like my decision. They took it to court, which is their right, and the judge upheld my decision. And that's very unusual. I have never had such a difficult hearing that I actually had to throw a petition out. Because we want people to run for office. We don't want to deny them that right. So, but when fraud occurs, you have to. So that was very unusual. So anyway, I do that. I tabulate the votes on election night, and then somebody can challenge it, as I said, and ask for a recount. And in that case, we review every machine. There's a counter on the machine. And that counter tells you how many voters actually voted, and that has to correspond to the cartridge. So, and then we also review every absentee ballot. And of all those recounts I've had, I think people have picked up a few votes, usually from the absentees. I don't think an election has ever been overturned, though, that I can recall. So let's go over the ballot. I brought you the 2 ballots for Plainfield. There are 2 different ballots depending where you live. Some people are going to be voting for councilman at large and 3rd ward council, and some just councilman at large. But at the top of the ballot is the Democratic ballot. And of course, the president is the first one on the ticket. And it's a little unusual because the president's here, and under the president are all the delegates that are running for the Democratic Convention. And it is 1 button next to President Obama. And when you press that button, it not only votes for President Obama, but all the delegates. Okay, that will be representatives. The next office is U.S. Senate, and that's Robert Menendez, then member of the House of Representatives, Rajoppi. The members of the Board of Freeholders, Alex Marabella, Mohammed Jalla, Bruce Bergen, Councilman at Large, Tracy Brown, and 3rd Ward Council, Adrian Mack. And we have 2 other candidates running on a 2nd line, and that is Veronica Taylor and Rashid Abdul Ha. Okay. And then there's a 3rd column for anyone who wants to write in a vote. Okay. Republican is a little more complex the nomination to the Secretary of State, so he still appears on the ballot. So we have Rick Santorum, Mitt Romney, Newt Gingrich, same thing, and Ron Paul. They're delegates, and then the same offices I mentioned above, U.S. Senate, Congress, freeholder, and councilman at large, third ward council. And on the Republican ticket, their county committee is up. It rotates. 1 year it's Republicans, 1 year it's Democrats, this year it's Republicans. So that's on the ballot. So as I said, you're locked down, depending on your party, of the other ballot when you go in. So that's just an overview, a brief overview of everything. We urge you to vote, tell people to vote. If you're not registered to vote for the primary, it is too late for the primary. However, you can still register to vote for November. And I tell people, if you're going to be 18 by election day in November, even though you're 17 now, fill this out and send it in. What the Board of Elections does is they keep them. And then when that person turns 18, they will register them. Okay, so you'll be registered. And you know you're registered to vote because you should receive a sample ballot to your home address at least a week before the election. And that sample ballot will look just like this, just like the official ballot. Plus it will tell you where to vote. Okay? Yes?
Can you explain the process of writing in a candidate? Because you mentioned that there's a last column for people to write in a candidate's name.
Yes.
So if a person wanted to do that, what are the steps? Is that something that we're going to cover today?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a very good question. The question was, how do you write in a candidate with this system? Okay. How you do it is you would go, let's say you want to vote for a different senator, okay? You would go to the write-in personal choice and press that button. That's empty, right?
Right.
And then there is a keyboard at the bottom of the machine. And you would put in the name of the person you want. That's how you do it. It's
Okay.
very simple.
Okay.
So it's a keyboard, press the button next to that person's title.
Okay.
Okay? And you should put in a first name and a last name if you can.
Not a Republican, can you still vote for like one party pretty much?
Yes. When you go to the polls, that's called unaffiliated. When you go to the polls on election day, you say, declare yourself then. You tell the poll worker, I want to vote Democratic or Republican.
Okay.
But that means that you're then registered as a Democrat or Republican, just so you know. But that's how you're going to vote that day. You can change it back. Change it. There's a form that they have